Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of our last performance. As I mentioned after the game, I was just really thankful of the efforts of the group. You're always a little bit hesitant coming out of a bye, just being outside of a stadium for that long. But I thought our guys really came in and played, didn't waste any time warming up to the competition and got in the flow of the game immediately. And I just think that's important. Largely looking at the totality of the game, I thought the run game was significant on both sides. On defense, man, we had to work to minimize Kamara, and he's a dynamic guy. I thought we were effective at doing so. And then they just challenged the heck out of you with the way that they use Hill, whether it's at quarterback or otherwise, and the things that challenges you in terms of communicating in the schematic component. I just thought our guys did a really good job of communicating. Oftentimes, our home game and environment is an advantage to us, and it is, because it makes communication and operation difficult for the opposing offenses. But when we're faced with some check ball and things of that nature on defense, it's also problematic for us. And I just thought our guys did a really good job of managing that. On the offensive side of the ball, I just thought Naj ran well. I thought our line ran off the ball. I thought we got hats on hats. I thought Jalen was solid as well. I thought the prudent use of quarterback mobility added to that. Kenny did a nice job running, extending, and taking care of the ball while doing so. I thought that teed up possession downs. It teed up possession downs for us on defense. Largely, we kept them in third and long situations, and so we were able to win enough of those. And on offense, at times it kept us out of third down situations, and that's a component of it as well. Just being able to possess the ball, I think the time of possession reflected that discussion. A lot of other things to discuss, but I thought that those were a couple of significant things. Looking at us from a health standpoint, Kevin Dotson has got a hip that may limit him at the early portions of the week. We'll let his participation, the quality, his participation be our guide. Najee is got some lower body or knee discomfort. Don't expect it to be an issue relative to game participation, but might minimize him some here at the early portions of the week. We're still working with and monitoring Akello Witherspoon with his hamstring and where that might lead us. Reports regarding Minka and his inclusion this week are really positive. I know that he's already been here and run today. I saw him Sunday at the stadium, and, Minka wanted to play on Sunday. Obviously, that was the appropriate thing to do, but that's just the mentality that he brings. And oftentimes when you're talking about injury or being unavailable, coming back from lack of availability, your attitude has a lot to do with it. And so we're really optimistic about him. Some other guys got some bumps and bruises in play along the way. We'll take it as it comes and lean on our prep as we get ready. Now regarding Cincinnati, they're coming off of a bye, and so that always creates a myriad of things to be concerned about as a team that faces them, how they utilize their bye, the self-analysis, the things that you do to shift your personality based on current circumstances, people available to you, people not available to you. And so as we lay the foundation for our plan and we're familiar with them and they're familiar with us, that is a component of preparation worth acknowledging. And so we're spending some time there. Obvious reasons, starting on the defensive side of the ball, we can't allow their front to dominate the game. We got to keep Kenny upright. The protection of the quarterback is significant. They're probably more of a pressure group than they were in week one, or at least our thought process was about them in week one. They've displayed more pressure. Mike Hilton is a big component of that. You guys know we're familiar with him and the type of blitzer he is, but it's not just him. They've done a really good job of being thoughtfully aggressive, particularly situationally. They won't hesitate to go all out and come after you. They did against us, particularly, as the game was unfolding in week one, and that personality has persisted throughout. And so those are some schematic things. the quality players, obviously we're familiar with the safety tandem, Jesse Bates and Von Bell, playing really well, taking the ball away from people. Wilson at the linebacker level is dynamic, man, in all situations guy. He makes plays all over the field in the run game, the passing game, as a coverage guy, as a blitzer. Really doing an awesome job of coming into his own. We talked about it in the lead up to week 1, but he's done nothing but further confirm our thoughts and feelings about his development since then. But they just really have a rock-solid group. They're fundamentally sound. They got veteran guys in the secondary, and so that allows them to throw a lot at you, coverage variations, and the menu itself. The depth of the menu itself is challenging, and so we expect that to continue. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously, it starts with Joe Burrow and finding ways to minimize his impact on the game. He's a talented guy. He makes good and quick decisions. His accuracy is what it is. He can throw the deep ball. He's inclusive from a mentality standpoint. He utilizes all of his eligibles. He's probably displaying more willingness to run now than he was at the early portions of the season, and so we've seen some of that on his tape, and so we better be cautious about that component of it as well, man. He's a guy that's capable of really hurting you with his legs if you don't give that appropriate attention. Although he's been without Chase here in recent weeks, this guy has quality players. I mean, Tyler Boyd will kill you. T. Higgins will really get after you, man, and he does a good job of spreading the ball around and not allowing you to lock in on one particular guy. The way he spreads it makes him difficult, and them difficult to deal with. If you spend too much time focusing on him and his eligibles, Joe Mixon is going to beat you. I'd imagine that he's gaining real traction, particularly in recent weeks since they've been without Chase. It's just, kind of common sense, man. You minus one significant guy, you redistribute the responsibility, and the tape has that feel. Joe's always a challenge. He's tough. He's got good pick and vision. He finishes off runs. He plays with violence in the secondary. We just gotta, we gotta be open to that challenge as well. And then the special teams component of the game is always big. Their coordinator, Darren Simmons, and Danny Smith, man, both have been at it a long time. I'd imagine they've seen each other quite a bit over the years. They probably got 50 matchups. I'm probably not exaggerating because of their resumes. But their experience really puts weight on that component of the game, our familiarity, their familiarity with us in that component of the game. And really, if you look at the history of this series, offensive and defensive players on both sides get a lot of attention, and rightfully so, because their play has been significant. But it just seems like the special teams component of this game, this matchup always has been a significant one. We can't provide lip service to that component of the game. We better stack our chips, put together a good plan, and have focused energy in that area as well. In an effort, man, to increase our chances of winning, man. We acknowledge this is a really big game. Every time you win, man, the subsequent one gets bigger, and so that's our agenda, to keep making sure that they all get a little bit bigger. It's cool to be in some AFC North ball at our place, and so we just show our respects to that and the excitement regarding that with how we prepare, and so we're excited about doing so as we lean in on our week. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Coach, you mentioned the Bengals' ability to bring pressure, especially on the pass rush. Your Achilles' heels has been the pass blocking on Kenny, can cost multiple sacks over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you for being so descriptive of that.
Yeah, well, getting the hell beat out of them. Is it possible to correct technique on pass blocking throughout in the middle of the season?
Certainly. We're continually sharpening our sword and developing skills relative to our positions at all positions, whether it's the collective or whether it's individual people that have things that creep up in their game. That's why we work every day. The skill development component of practice is a significant one. That's why we don't go straight to group work, even at this juncture of the season. The skill development is significant.
Mike, The run game's been very productive the last 2 weeks, and it seems like each week everybody keeps giving more and more credit to the offensive line. How have you seen them evolve as we've gone forward?
I'm gonna keep dumping on them like my buddy back there. We just gonna keep our head down and keep working. They're not a group that looks for acknowledgement. They understood the amount of attention that was going to be on them because so many of them were new, and the collective development was going to be a process. In the midst of that, we needed to be productive enough and to show resolve and collective commitment, and they've done that. And so as long as they continue to do that, it's reasonable to expect the growth and development to continue in all areas, not just the run game.
I'm sorry. In conjunction with that, where specifically have you seen the most improvement on the O-line in terms of run blocking?
Just the nature in which they put four hands on people, the movement we're getting when we choose to double, and the understanding of the timing of when to come off or when to not come off double teams. And that's just born out of cooperative work, one man working with another. It's been fun to watch the cohesion come together between JD and Chooks, for example. But that has to happen for a right guard and right tackle. Oftentimes they're double teaming B-gap players and they come together and then they got to deal with the linebackers however they show themselves. And so I just see collective growth development in some of the real cooperative work that comes with that position, like a double team, for instance, or the help principle associated with pass protection is another example. It's really all areas, but the significant ones are where multiple people are coming together and gaining understanding and timing relative to the game.
Mike, those guys, offensive line, pretty much played every snap together. How much has that helped for the cohesion to come together quicker than maybe expected?
Availability is a big component of it, no doubt. When those guys have an opportunity to log snaps together and they have shared experiences, there benefits from that. When they don't, and then there's moving people around and the inclusion of different people, then obviously it slows down progress.
Mike, in talking with some of the offensive guys across position groups, they mentioned having a lot of meetings and watching film together in different ways from the bye and kind of going forward. How has that kind of expedited the cohesion across the position groups?
We just did what you do during the bye week. You focus on getting better.
As far as from somebody who has appendicitis, is there a hurdle, a last thing that Minka has to do?
I have no idea. I'd be speculating. I'm just going to, follow the advice of the medical experts and communicate with Minka, but I don't have a lot of exposure to it, to be quite honest with you.
Like some of the pass protection issues that you were asked about before, is any of that residue of having a rookie quarterback and getting rid of the ball?
Absolutely. That's why I kind of laughed at the question. Sometimes Kenny gets Kenny in trouble, but that's just the nature of being a young guy.
How would you grade his growth over the season of being able to, make adjustments on the fly as far as when to stay, when to go?
It's been really impressive. I think his general growth, if you ask me to summarize the rate of growth, the range of growth, it's been really impressive in all areas, and I think it's reasonable to expect it to continue.
Mike, what you saw from KZ on Sunday was just a continuation of what you saw in that little window earlier in the year on the preseason.
Really, very much so. And I think that's why we were all so excited about him. But at the same time, I think that's why we were also disappointed when he went down. I mean, this guy is just a football lover. He brings energy and enthusiasm. He's a good communicator. He's a playmaker. We're lucky to have him.
You mentioned Kenny's contribution in the run game, and has that made you want to possibly have more design runs for him, or do you like his ability to kind of improvise and then take off?
I think every time I say, quarterback mobility, I always say the prudent use of quarterback mobility, and I do so intentionally because there's risk associated with that, and risk is something that we all weigh. And I think any of us that have mobility at the quarterback position, I just think that that's a component of the equation each and every week. Mobility is a good thing, but when and how to use it while managing the risk component of it is also an element of the equation and will always be, particularly at that position.
Mike, you have backup quarterback that's pretty athletic. It looked like that on the practice field last week, and I asked him if he'd ever been a receiver. He said, no, I'm just a good athlete. Has there been any discussion about maybe using him in some sort of package?
We have no intentions of making him Taysom Hill, if that's what you're asking.
Why not?
Because we have others who specialize in those areas who are, quite frankly, better than him at it.
You said the range of growth for Kenny. Where have you seen specifically in his play that growth happened the most, and where are you looking for the?
I don't know that I can appropriately answer that in terms of the most. We're just trying to win football games, and he's a component of it. He's got to get better and play better each and every week. We expect that. He expects that. And there's a lot of meat on the bone in all areas of his game. But that's not a wild statement because he is a young guy.
Mike, what is your plan to place kicker this week?
I'm sorry?
We go with Matthew Wright still as your kicker?
Yes.
And what else did you see? You mentioned after the game there were some other things that went on with those kicks that.
I thought I was pretty clear after the game. Our operations have to improve, our protections have to improve, and he as a kicker has to improve. And so we'll go to work this week.
Robert Spillane was a significant contributor for you. He mentions a lot how he'd like to be a football coach one day. Are there ways that you see those attributes show up in his preparation or performance?
Every day. But we have a lot of guys with that mentality and maybe those aspirations. I tell each and every one of them, don't quit their day job, man. There's more money in playing. But I just think as a coach, as somebody that loves football, you appreciate that shared spirit. I've been around it a long time. I'm honored to have had guys that have come through this program that are coaches in the National Football League and doing a heck of a job at it. And it's cool to be a part of their growth and development in terms of the game and knowing the game from outside the helmet perspective.
In the first game without Claypool, how did you see the redistribution go? Did it go like how you thought it might play out?
We're still very much a work in progress in that area. I saw some signs of it, but I think it'll be several weeks, getting our footing in those areas. I just think that that's a reasonable discussion.
Coach, in the red zone offense, most of the passes seem to be going to the out corner. Is that also because of Kenny's lack of experience?
Oftentimes it might be dictated by coverage and a lot of variables. I don't know what specific plays you're talking about, and so I'll just answer it in that way. There's clarity on the perimeter of the field oftentimes. When the field gets short, particularly if you're a young guy, if you're cognizant about taking care of the ball, sure, the more prudent decision oftentimes is to seek clarity.
Mike, Sunday was the most that you guys used both Pat Freiermuth and Zach Gentry in run blocking, as run blockers in a game. Is the use of more 12 personnel packages something that you guys have focused on, and how did you grade their run blocking performance?
It could be a lot of things. It could be the nature of the matchup, us and them. It could be the Claypool discussion, the redistribution of snaps, if you will. There's a lot of variables in the discussions about what personnel groups we use and to what extent we use them.
You got Derek Watt involved a little bit more in the offense this week. Just what did you like about putting him in those situations?
The situations presented themselves. I don't think he's done anything outside of his normal role, but just maybe more of the opportunities presented themselves in this game than maybe some others.
Just wanted to follow up. How did you feel about your tight ends and their blocking efforts on Sunday?
I thought they did a really good job, and particularly against those 4-3 ends. The 4-3 end is a challenge in today's game at the tight end position. They're much bigger people than tight ends, and that's why a guy like Zach Gentry has value. Zach doesn't look like most tight ends, He looks like a lot of 4-3 ends, and so that's why guys like Zach are employed. They're less dynamic in the passing game, but their efforts are appreciated in more subtle ways. More subtle ways to the naked eye, not those of us that are in the business.
I think Deontay's among the league leaders in drawing pass interference calls. What does that tell you about a receiver, and can that sometimes be frustrating to a guy that's open?
I don't know what it tells you, to be quite honest with you. I hadn't analyzed it in that way.
Can it be frustrating to a guy as a receiver?
I think a lot of things can be frustrating. I think he's probably better equipped to answer that than I. I'm not going to speak for him.
Najee mentioned after the game he felt that there's a little bit of a different approach being taken around, the building. What are the real differences that we're seeing, that we're not seeing as couple weeks ago.
We're continually turning the stones over in an effort to change the outcome of games, and I've been repeatedly acknowledging that as I come in here on Tuesdays. And if he mentioned anything in that regard, it's those efforts. I'm open to change. I'm open to doing whatever is required for us to get better in all areas, division of labor, schematics, et cetera. And so those have been the ongoing discussions, and so it shouldn't be surprising that somebody acknowledges that we're doing things differently. We have to. We hadn't won enough games, and so we better keep turning the stones over until we find the rhythm that we desire.
You also mentioned some conversations that have been had, specifically over the bye week, of off-field things that, candid conversations, things like that, that's been helping. What, take me through some.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So, I don't know what you mean.
That's just what he said, some candid conversations of things off the field that have helped to get, things right on the field.
I don't know what he was referring to, so I don't have anything to add. I'm sorry.
Mike, speaking of change, you seem to attack the middle of the field, in particular with slant passes. Was that by design for just that week, or something you want to incorporate into the offense more?
We got a desire to find open space. I don't know that it was anything unique, to be quite honest with you, relative to our regular intentions. It might be something that was born out of opportunity. They had some corners go down in game and things of that nature, and they did some things differently as the game unfolded and provided more space in the interior portions of the field as they got into an umbrella, if you will.
When you talk about change that was happening in the building over the bye and last week, just who are some of the drivers, player-wise, that are really trying to push things forward and make those changes?
I don't look to them. That's my job. I just expect those guys to come in the building every day with a great attitude, ready to work. That's what we talked openly about. I don't need them to do anything other than to prepare themselves and to be a good teammate and to come ready for the work.
A lot of guys have talked about, coaches, players have talked about how Najee's a very emotional player, and sometimes that can weigh him down. Sometimes it can help, but they felt like he had just more confidence in how he played Sunday. Did you see a shift in his emotions or in a way that he approached the game?
I don't know that I sensed any different approach on Sunday. He and I have a lot of conversations because of his role in the position that he plays, and it was a normal communication and focus and desire to perform and perform well. This is a guy that's highly competitive, man. He brings that every week. I can't say that last Sunday was any different.
Mike, when you take a step back from the game, can you quantify the emotional impact T.J. Watt has just by being back out there and maybe schematically using up an extra guy all the time?
Yeah, you can't. There's an intangible quality to players like him. They do. They bring more than their presence and their playmaking. They instill confidence in those around them. And so that is a very real thing. You can't necessarily measure it, but as somebody that's been in this business, I acknowledge that it is real.
How many of those guys have you had since you've been the coach?
Oh, my gosh. Thankfully, I've been around a few. And chances are you're not going to have good units unless you have a few. I've been a part of some good defenses, man, in my adulthood since I've been at this level. And so I've had the pleasure of being around some significant dudes, some defensive player of the year type guys. It's been an honor.
One point you made about Cincinnati, I think it's words to the effect of you can see it on the tape, you can feel it on the tape without Chase, how they're kind of leaning in with Mixon. You're talking about in terms of just run-pass split or when they're deciding to stick with the run? What's giving you that tone?
Run-pass split, situational things as well, the weighty moments. When it gets thick, man, you focus on your playmakers, and they're -1. But I imagine that brings a lot of attention to another one like Joe Mixon.
Mike, just to clarify, Kenny's ankle, he's fine?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Like when we've talked with guys just about, the offense kind of finding their identity throughout the season. How have you kind of seen, especially in the last couple of weeks here, them take steps in that? And has Kenny had a specific role in that as well?
I just think they come to work every day ready to get better, and they're bringing a good spirit while doing so. And you can't underscore that. We absorb a lot of negativity in this business, and particularly when you're not performing the way that you desire and your ability to show individual and collective resolve and bring a good spirit to the work and not be bogged down by that, I think is a significant component in terms of working your way out of those things.
Mike, if Mink is available with KZ, do you anticipate finding ways to get him involved?
Who's that?
KZ.
I assume you were talking about KZ. Yeah. Yes. Specialization is big. We did a lot of that during team development, and so it's reasonable to expect that to continue, yes.
Mink is almost like a professor, almost, it seems like, the way he carries himself. He's not he's not emotive, at least. KZ seems to be the opposite. Can a group benefit from having that sort of yin and yang in the room?
I just learned over the years that when you got a collective like a team, all the personalities are beneficial, provided that they're their authentic self. Whatever you are, be that. Try to be that every day. Be your best self. And we benefit from the variety of personalities and approaches. The flatliner stabilizes the group sometimes when it's helter-skelter. The excitable guy sometimes uplifts the group when the group's a little bit flat. I just think that that's just one of the beautiful things about team sport and our game in particular.
Is Minka grumpy like Cam says?
Minka is grumpy, but I kind of like it. I do.
Mike, you didn't mention William Jackson specifically. What's his status?
Yeah, he's on IR.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.